I'd heard that song in a different form or two, and I do like that song. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Good to see our mission trippers back. I saw lots and lots of pictures. I've even seen a couple of videos. I ran out of time this morning. It was either watch y'all or get ready to preach. So I had to quit watching y'all and get ready to preach. I had watched 30 minutes worth of youth pictures of the things that you did this week. And I was very proud of you and pleased. I got to see, some hula hooping going on, and I saw some silly songs being led, and it looked like a lot of fun. Maybe wish that I was there, and I know that many of you had your heartstrings tugged a bit as you had to get ready to leave. So that's a hard thing. When we think about grace and peace, and we think about God coming to us, we accept the blessing that he gives us. And we wonder sometimes about the way that he works. I do have a couple of props. I knew that would play to the old youth minister crowd like Doug and Byron. So object lessons. This is some extra air in case I run out and need some extra. And does anyone know what this happens to be? A what? Oh, a book. Now, a photo album. This is what archaic people had as Facebook. I mean, this is, all the old people, they know what a photo album is. And there are pictures here of skinny people with hair. All of my kids are in here, not me. No, it's one of those photo albums. And so we think about that this morning. Back in the winter of 1944-45, my grandmother had the flu. She was very sick. My dad was 4 years old and he was sick. My aunt was 18 months old and she was sick. And I occasionally tell the story of Sister Null in Jamestown, Texas. That's about 7 or 8 miles north of Van, Texas. If you're traveling toward Shreveport on I-20, you know where Van is. My granddad lived there on Jamestown in that area. He was a truck farmer. He had been in the Seabees and missed World War II because he was a farmer, and he sold up US 80. He brought produce into the Dallas Farmers Market, but he was gone and had been for a few days and was a few days away from home. And my grandmother was very, very ill. And Sister Null took and filled a half-gallon jar like this with chicken soup. And she took it to my grandmother. And I don't know that it saved her life, maybe. But I know that it saved her soul, because it was in that chicken soup that my grandmother and Sister Null became good friends. And my grandmother started going to church. Not that she wasn't a believer, but she had not been to church. My granddad didn't encourage that. He was a drinker and a gambler, so that wasn't high on his priority list. But from that moment on, that winter, my grandmother went to church because of a half-gallon jar of chicken soup. And I look back on that and look at how that has changed history and changed life. And I'm able to look back through a photo album. And it's easy to see the work of God over time. But all Sister Null did that day was take a sick lady with some little kids some soup. She wasn't thinking that someday there'd be a fellow preaching in Springtown years and years from now. It was never in her thought. She just knew someone that needed help and helped them. That was her day. And that's what she did that day. And I want to ask you if you know what God is doing in your life right now. With absolute certainty, do you know what God is doing in your life today, right now at this moment? Because I don't have a clue. Not at all. I don't know. And it's okay. We don't have to know. That's not the critical part of the story. I don't know what God is doing in your life or my life today, any more than Sister Null knew what God was doing in her life the day she dropped off some chicken soup. Now, when we pick up the photo album, it's very easy to go back through and see the work of God. It's not hard to see God in retrospect. In history, we can see that. That's sort of like the scripture reading that we had this morning, where, we get to thinking there, and Justin did a good job reading Joseph saying, look, you sent me here under duress to Egypt, but God sent me here to offer salvation to my family. Well, Joseph is looking at the photo album. I don't think he felt that way the day that his brothers knocked him in the head and threw him in the cistern, put him in a pit, and waited for the Ishmaelite traders to come by and were willing to kill him to get him out of the way. But they decided, why should we be out a dead body when we can make some profit? So they sold Joseph into slavery. I'm not sure Joseph felt that way the day in Potiphar's house that he shows up for work and everyone's gone, and Potiphar's wife says, come lay with me. And he refuses. And he goes to prison for a rape he never occurred. He never did. Never happened. But he goes that day. And I'm not sure Joseph felt that way the day he goes to prison. God has a way of looking at our days and seeing what they're like. This morning I'm just going to tell you the story of the book of Ruth. And in the book of Ruth, we immediately jump ahead, don't we? We say, well, she was the great-grandmother of David. And we start to look at the photo album, and we already know about King David being born, and we know who Boaz is, and Obed, and Salmon, and we know that Boaz's mom is Rahab the harlot. Well, we start to unfold the photo album, and we say, look at all the things God did. But I want you to look at the story a little bit differently this morning. Go back a slide, Peter. You're way ahead. I'm not near ready to preach there. There we go. So we're quick to jump ahead in the story, just like slides, right? We're jumping ahead. Don't get ahead of the story. We need to live the story in the moment. We need to live the story with them and walk that walk. It's easy to see God in the photo album, but it's difficult to see God in the midst of prison, or if I'm starving. Where is God when the whole nation is in such condition that we're all starving? What is God doing the day that I'm grieving? What is God doing the day that I'm an alien? And I don't belong here. This is not my home. And I'm in a weary, strange, and foreign land. And we don't get to see the God of the photo album at that point. But through it all, God shows up. He's always there. In the good and the bad, the blessed be your name dimensions, the goodness of God begins to shine forth and show through. And most of Naomi's life. Now, Naomi is the heroine in the story of Ruth at the beginning. So go ahead now, Peter, to Naomi's slide. But think about Naomi for a moment. Some boy from Bethlehem named Elimelech asked her to marry him. And she said yes, and she was propertied, and she had land and identity in the land of Israel, in the area of Bethlehem. And Naomi means pleasant. Her name literally means pleasant. And she's in a good place, and she has a couple of kids, and these sons are hers. Mahlon and Chilion are her sons. And then the drought hits. And the drought is so severe that they have to travel to Moab. Now that's more significant than you think. Moab was one of the places Israel wasn't supposed to go. Moab and the Ammonites were those two nations that wouldn't let Israel come through their property lines when they were trying to come and conquer Canaan. So they became mortal enemies, and they were neighbors, and that was the last place you wanted to go. But Elimelech is so hungry, he has to take his family to Moab. And when they get to Moab, Elimelech dies. So now Naomi is trapped in a distant land a widow with 2 sons, and they both marry Moabite girls. They marry foreign women. Now, I don't know how the Moabites felt about an Israelite named Mahlon marrying one of theirs. But Naomi has 2 foreign daughter-in-laws that she never planned on. And now son 1 is dead. Where's God that day? Is God there the day that you go through sudden and tragic death? Where are you, God? Can we shake our fist with Job? Surely Naomi felt like it, and maybe she does. We'll get to her a little later here in this page. Naomi has lots of right to be upset. Son 2 dies. Now I'm an Israelite woman in a Moabite country, no husband, no sons, stuck with 2 daughters-in-law that now I feel responsible for. I've got to take care of these daughters-in-law. They are there. And all I can do is say, I'm going home, y'all go home too. And Orpah says, see ya. I think she liked Naomi, but I think Orpah's doing what she was told to do. I don't know what Ruth's home life was like, but we see that she has 2 daughters-in-law to deal with. Her life is failed. God has failed. All has failed. We don't usually read Ruth that way, but if you miss that part of the story, you miss the story of God at work in every life, every day, all day long. God is doing something in your life right now. Even if you say, where in the world is he? If this is what God is doing, I can't handle any more of it. God is at work in your life. And that's painful and difficult and hard for us to hear sometimes, but that's the reality. That's the truth. God has not abandoned Naomi. Now, if I'm Naomi, I probably feel pretty alone. But God has not abandoned Naomi. So she goes back home, and her name meant pleasant. But when she gets home and she comes in the streets of Bethlehem and everyone says, oh, there's Naomi, there's Naomi. And she says, wait a minute. Don't ever call me Naomi again. My name is Mara. From now on, my name is bitter. Things are not going my way. My God has not shown up in a positive way. I am bitter in my life, bitter about God. I am bitter. So I'm changing my name. Don't call me Naomi, you call me Mara. From now on, that's who I'm going to be. And I've got a tale to tell. But what if we look at Ruth from Ruth's viewpoint in this next slide? Wonder what she's thinking. Ruth is now this Moabitess girl who married this nice Israeli man. He comes into her country. He's an alien, and she marries him. It's a total different angle from Naomi. Now we have Ruth saying, no, I've sort of sanctified this alien. Now he's one of us. He's in our country. She's in a tough place. I don't know how that's going to play in Moab. I don't know what the people are going to think. What do we do with an alien? They came in and married one of our girls. How do we deal with him? And then he dies. Took me forever. I had to read Ruth twice to find out her husband's name. It's not obvious, right? You have to read over chapter 4, verse 10, where we find that Boaz says he's going to marry the widow of Mahlon. It's subtle in there. But if you wondered, Ruth was married to Mahlon. Orpah was married to Chilion. Now, Ruth says, I've got a mother-in-law to support. Strange how things change with point of view, isn't it? Naomi says, I've got this daughter-in-law to deal with. And Ruth says, I've got this mother-in-law to take care of. But that's where she makes that wonderful statement that you're so familiar with, that we preach at nearly all the funerals that we have. In chapter 1 and verse 16, Naomi told Ruth, going back home, I don't have anything for you. I'm empty. If you could wait and I could have a child today, would you wait for him to grow up enough to be your husband? Would you hang in there and wait that long? It's not going to work, Ruth. Go home. Ruth said, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back. Naomi says that in verse 15. To her people and her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. And where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. Now, it was okay for a Moabite to come into Israel if they convert, right? Anyone that comes in, if they will become Jews, they're okay. Whether they're slaves, whether they are aliens. So before Ruth ever comes into the land, she's converted. She's already said, your God is my God, and may Yahweh put me to death if anything else separates us. I'm on your team, Naomi. I'm the daughter-in-law who is coming in full support of you where you are. I'm on your side. We got another character in the book by the name of Boaz. Now think about Boaz for a moment. Boaz made it through the drought, right? And he's growing crops again. And food's coming back up. And one of the first things we learn about Boaz is he allows gleanings on the edges of his field, which is what the law said you were supposed to do, but he's really good at this at a time it's really hard to be good at this. If I'm coming out of a drought and I haven't had a crop in years and years, the last thing I want to do is give any of it away. I want to make my money. And I need to provide for my family. What if we have another drought next year? So I'm going to be right to be a little selfish with my grain. That's the way David would do it. That's not the way Boaz does it. Boaz leaves the corners, the gleanings. Well, be sure and leave something for the folks that need to come and get food. They've gone through the drought too, and they're needing food. And Boaz is ready for that, and he has that heart for that. And he goes out to check the field one day, and there's this new girl. Naomi had sent Ruth into that field, I don't think accidentally. I don't think it's by chance. It says by chance, but it's not by accident. It is the providence of God now at work. And Ruth is there, and Boaz sees her. There's going to be a place where you have a little shelter and some water. He meets her there and says, just stay with my maiden so you'll be safe. I want to take care of you and provide for you. I want everything to be good with you. And so the rest of the day, Ruth just picks up gleanings with the maidens of Boaz, folks that are out getting grain for him. And they bring all the grain and they pile it on the threshing floor. And they would have had threshing floors throughout as much as they could get area, but this field's going to have a huge threshing floor. And grain is not like flour at the store. Grain is gold to them. You imagine how you'd feel if there was a pile of food laying out there after a famine. Imagine what's worth protecting. So where is the farmer going to sleep at night? Right on top of the grain pile. I'm going to sleep right here. Well, Ruth goes home that first day and tells Naomi where she was and what she did and how the day went. And Naomi's attitude begins to change. And she says, oh, he is a near kinsman to us. We're related to that guy. You ought to stay close to his maids. Well, that's what he said. You ought to get in his field. Well, that's what he said. Actually, he is a very near relative to us, a redeeming relative. This isn't the levirate marriage law. This is the kinsman redeemer law. This is going to be having to do with property. How do we keep Mahlon and Elimelech's property in the tribe of the Bethlehem region, the Ephrathites? You see, you had to do that. You had your family and your clan and your tribe and your nation, and you were to keep yourself in that mode. So, boy, it would mean something pretty bad if you sold to somebody in Zebulun, if you're from the land of Bethlehem, Ephraim's region. No, you can't sell that property to some Ephraimite, even though they're part of the tribe, but they're not part of our clan. We've got to keep that in the clan. And so the kinsman redeemer is to keep the property in the family. And that's the way it was designed to work. Elimelech has no sons left. Mahlon has no children. And the question is, what's going to happen to the property? Naomi can't have the property per se. She wasn't the male, so that the clan derives from her. This wasn't the woman in Proverbs 31 that went looked for a field and bought it with her own money. She'd married into this. So it's a weird dynamic, isn't it? So think about Boaz. He's just an older man, just surviving the drought, working it through. A lot of reasons he might not be married yet, right? You don't take on a family when you can't feed them, when the drought's going pretty severely and you have no way to take care of them and provide for them. Elimelech, he had to leave. Maybe Boaz is single. He's able to stay. Opportunistic. He can get by on less, and he keeps property. His world is a little different. Leaving the gleanings in the field is his character. I want to show you my generosity. I see. And then he sees the girl. Who's that girl? Well, y'all know the story pretty well. And it does get providential from here, doesn't it? That's a horrible thing to say in this sermon. Matter of fact, it's the last thing I want you to hear. It's been providential all along. Has God worked for the last 20 years when Naomi's been going through so much garbage? God was there every day. God has not failed her. God has not failed you no matter what you're going through today. It may be a divorce. It may be a death. It may be a loneliness. God has not abandoned you. He has not forgotten you. You are walking in that part where no one takes pictures. We don't put those pictures in the photo album. We don't take pictures of drought and starvation and alienation. We don't put those in the photo album. I didn't see a lot of mission trip pictures where those were there. Chances are you could show me a few, couldn't you? If I sat down with you and you showed me all the pictures of the photos, you could say, oh, this little girl was here because. This little boy was here because. Things weren't great in their family. It wasn't the best place for them to be. Now it's the best place for them to be. You would look at the photo album differently than me, but they might not put their picture there yet. They might not yet see the hand of God in their life. Maybe you are part of their pictures. Maybe you are the hand of God in their life. Maybe you are something like Naomi and Ruth. And Naomi comes home bitter, and Ruth says, I'm coming with you. And something in Naomi's life starts to get better. By the end of the story, Ruth is going to be better to her than 7 sons. And she's going to show her that condition. We're going to look back and we're going to be able to see that. But we'll hurry through the rest. You know how that next night, Naomi got Ruth all dressed up and said, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the threshing floor tonight after everybody's calm, and I want you to find Boaz, and I want you to uncover his feet. That was a euphemism that meant something that I probably don't fully understand. It had sexual overtones to it. It was basically a come on, an advance of, I want to pursue relationship. And that's what Ruth does at Naomi's direction. And Boaz wakes in the night with this girl at his feet. He instantly knows all the connotations. He's not misunderstanding anything. There's nothing misrepresented. He said, yes, I am a kinsman. I am in the Redeemer line, but there's someone closer. Slow down. Slow down. I think it's very possible that had there not been someone nearer, they could have consummated things that evening. That's how the community would have seen that. That could have been the functionality of, this is how Boaz is going to take care of Naomi and Ruth. But there's someone in the middle. And it's not legal to do it this way, and it's not moral to do it just yet. So Ruth has made the advance. Boaz has accepted the commitment, but Boaz has acted responsibly. We're going to have to do this legally. Someone else is closer. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll meet them at the city gates tomorrow morning, and I'll tell them what is your desire, that you want your land redeemed, and you want the nearest kinsman to take you as wife so that he can raise up children to Mahlon and Elimelech and this property that they're going to acquire in this deal that we're making. And so he meets this guy at the city gate the next morning, and you all know that story pretty well. Where's God that day? Well, I think God shows up. But I think two guys are just meeting for a business transaction. I don't think they're providentially saying, Boaz, you're going to have to take this land so you can be the great-grandfather of David. I think they're just accommodating the world, what's going on in their daily life. They're just taking chicken soup to someone. They're just living their daily life like you are today. Some of you can take chicken soup to someone today. Some of you are doing something profound today and don't have a clue about it. Some of you are going to be in someone's photo album 75 years from now, and you'll never know your picture is there because you're accepting the work of God in your life right now, today, at this moment. That's what Boaz does. Now, they had the practice then of consummating the business deal. You didn't sign anything. You just took your shoe off and gave it to the guy. When you took your shoe off and gave it to the guy, when he received the shoe in front of the witnesses, that's why it's done at the city gate. That was their courthouse steps. We're going to auction off this widow and her land on the courthouse steps. And here's the deal. You get the property, but you have to take Ruth. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's pretty well going to compromise any of my tribe, clan, family inheritance. I really can't put my life in jeopardy for a Moabitess girl. That's asking an awful lot. I'm not comfortable with this deal. I'm not going to take on the alien girl. I just can't see how that's wise. Now, Boaz set it up pretty well, didn't he? And he sold it pretty well because he really does want to marry Ruth. But it is just the right way. So that the shoe is handed, and he makes sure everyone understands, I am rejecting the property and the widow. I am not willing to become the kinsman redeemer that raises up children for her and her deceased husband and father-in-law. I'm not supporting Elimelech and Mahlon. Any of y'all have weird families? Hallelujah. We've all got weird families, right? None of them is clean. Nobody makes all the photo album, right? I mean, who would be in your photo album that nobody takes a picture of, right? I didn't know that. My grandmother, when she had the flu, was pregnant with my uncle that died after he got out of Huntsville. You sort of leave that picture out of the book, don't you? I mean, to avoid going to Vietnam, he went early out of high school and went to Germany, which seemed like a wise move at the moment. I don't have to go fight in Vietnam, but in Germany they had not much to do and lots of drugs to do it with. So he did lots of drugs in Germany, and he spent the next 25 years fighting drug addiction and died at 49. Well, you could have left that part out. That's a pretty sad part of the story. God never left John Paul a day in his life. That's my Uncle John. Never left him. I saw him hold on to the back of the pew and cry when I preached because he wanted to come down the aisle and he knew he wasn't good enough. And I told him he wasn't good enough and he didn't come. I wrote him letters in Huntsville telling him he was good enough and it was okay. You see, my life had changed. His life had changed. God was at work in John Paul's life every moment that he fought those addictions. And every time he failed to have victory over those addictions, and God was at work in his life the day that he died. And I'm convinced that the chicken soup still saved him, even when he wasn't yet born, when it was delivered. Because he knew. He knew who God was. He knew who Jesus was. He knew what God was doing. Well, the story does end with a photo album, and we read just briefly the end of chapter 4. Naomi took the child that was born to Ruth and Boaz and laid him in her lap in chapter 4, verse 16, and became his nurse. The neighbor women gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." So they named him Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez was born Hezron. To Hezron was born Ram. To Ram, Amminadab. To Amminadab was born Nahshon. To Nahshon, Salmon. To Salmon was born Boaz. To Boaz, Obed. To Obed was born Jesse. To Jesse, David. And they ran through all the pictures in the photo album right quick. We see the work of God. I don't think Boaz saw God working in his life that day. I think he made himself available and let God do what God does with him. But I think if we had seen Boaz, if we had asked him, just like I asked you earlier, what is God doing in your life today? I don't think Boaz would have said, oh, God sent me this Moabitess to marry. It's probably not how it's going to go. But God sent him that Moabitess to marry and change the world. A lot of things in the story. The outsider gets it while Naomi is missing it. Ruth trusts in God when the people of God don't. It rained in Moab right next door when it didn't rain in Israel. God is the one who is judging Israel. Just because God is judging Israel doesn't mean everybody in Israel's bad. Just because our nation may be judged doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but you may be flat broke because of the economy and left sitting in your van down by the river, right? That may be where you have to live. That doesn't mean God has failed you or that your life is no good or that God has the demise of your life in mind. He's asking, what will you let me do with you today? And it may simply be visit with the other folks down by the river. Maybe all it is. That's what Ezekiel does. I sat where they sat, by the river Kibar in Babylon. Let God use you, and then remember the take home here. It's a hard take home, but I hope you find yourself in it. Are you absolutely certain what God is doing in your life right now? No, I'm not. I'd like to be. Are you absolutely certain that God is doing something in your life right now? That you can shake your head to. That you can shake your head. Yes, I'm absolutely certain God is doing something in my life right now. I may not have a clue what it is. But give God room to act and give him time because God is faithful. All he needs is room in your heart and time to function. And I don't know what you're going to battle the next 25 or 30 years. And I don't know what decisions Skidmore is going to make tomorrow. And I don't know what's going to go on in the larger scope of our environment. But I know God is at work in our world. And he asked us this in Philippians chapter 2, verse 12c and 13. It's a passage we misused for years. We talked about using it to work out our salvation so that someday if we were good enough, we might be saved. It's not at all what it says. He is taking us and saying, now that you are saved, what does that look like? He says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Why? Because God is at work in your life today. It is God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. Naomi got to that point. Ruth got to that point. Boaz got to that point. You're getting to that point. God is at work in your life today, and it doesn't matter that everything is okay from your side of the quilt. Everything's okay from God's side. He's not out of control. He's got you in his hand. He's taking good care of you. Will you submit to simply say, God, I am your vessel. Do your will in me today. If you got any chicken soup at home, see if you can find someone to give it to. You can change the world. Change the world by something you do. Small act of God's great grace. Oh, it's fun to look back at the photo album. I'll leave this here in case any of you want a good laugh. There's some pretty good pictures there. Oh, but that's just part of the story. My story's still unwritten. I'm writing on the page every day. I'm going to write in the book until he takes it away, because he's written my name in his book. Has he written your name in his book? If your name is in the Lamb's book of life, rejoice. God is at work. If it's not there yet, rejoice that you're here today and you found out God is doing something in my life, even if I can't see it. And I'm going to walk with him until he shows me what he's done. And then turn around, look back down the road and say, boy, I'm glad I didn't marry that girl. Boy, I'm sure glad that I didn't take that job. I'm thankful that I'm where I'm at today. And you'll see the hand of God all over your life. But it may be pretty hard to see today. This song is not easy to sing. Great is thy faithfulness, but it is a great song for us to sing. Morning by morning, he renews things every day. And I'm so glad that Byron picked it for us. If this is the day that God has brought you for salvation, then come together. He is faithful and will save you right now, as together we stand and sing.